It's the Vent Tech Pull Up. My name is Tess Bismail, and I am from iSocialX. I am so excited to talk about this part 2 episode that we have for you today, but I have to include my partner in crime, Keith Johnston from i3 Events. Do y'all like how that lasso came in?
I know. I like that. The Wonder Woman thing. You got that going. That's all right. So how are you, Tess?
Oh, I'm wonderful. Doing really good. So, what do we have in store today?
Well, today we've got the second part of our conversation with Pedro and Cecilia from InEvent, which is shaping up to be an amazing platform. I mean, they're killing it. So I'm really excited for everyone to kind of look under the hood and see what's going on with InEvent, because I think that'll be really helpful for a lot of our listeners who actually produce their own events, because there are quite a few of them out there.
Or want to take a stab at it,
yes,
in a way in which it's not as complicated as you think.
Yeah, you can see that you can do those amazing things with virtual and hybrid, and almost anyone can do it, which their platform is really great at that. But before we get to that, there's something big going on.
Oof.
And what would that be?
Big. And when I say big, it is what's going on the other side of the world, Keith. I mean, we've got the Ukraine and Russia at heads and butting, right? And for some reason, I must have thought that COVID had hit the world, and the world took a pause to think about humanity. And that's self-care for us, as well as thinking about our fellow man, like humanity. So Keith, what do you think about that?
I think it's a show. I think that I feel absolutely horrible for the people of Ukraine. I think what's going on is horrible. But I also look at it from a wider lens, and for the meetings and events industry, if this thing spreads, and it very well could, our industry is already knocked back on its heels over COVID. What is a wider war in Europe going to do to us? That's going to be horrible. I mean, that's completely ignoring the human toll that something like that would be, right? But from a meetings and events industry standpoint, and then we have all of our friends over there who are in Ukraine, who are in the tech industry.
Exactly. I mean, when I think it's horrifying to think what's going on currently. War has been going on throughout time, but for some reason, at this point, in what has happened with this one, it seems more detrimental overall to the entire world, as opposed to just a region of the world. So when we think about our friends, just in 2020, my team and I had produced an event for the National Coalition of Black Meeting Professionals. Keith, you remember that? And that was literally in April. We shut down in March. They came to me in April and was like, Tess, we need to do this as an inspiration for our members, and how can we do it? And I'm like, okay. And I needed to do it in 4 days, 5 cities.
Yeah.
Had to do a hybrid event in 5 cities with museums, going live in those museums who had shut down. So they didn't have power, some of them didn't have Wi-Fi, because why did you need all of that, or internet connection at all? How do we do all of that? And I actually had to rely on a technology called Pine, and they are based in the Ukraine. All of the developers are there, all the relationships that I built there, all the wonderful things that we had done. Immediately when it happened, I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on with my partners over there? How is this happening?
Yeah, and so many of what I don't think a lot of people understand is so many of the technologies that we use for meetings and events come right out of Ukraine and other parts of Europe, but primarily one of the big places is Ukraine. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I think like Attendify, all their developers were in Ukraine. I know Restream, which is something that we use when clients want to broadcast to multiple, 2 Facebook pages and a couple LinkedIn pages. We use Restream. They're based in Ukraine. So what happens to those people? And then, the technologies that you use are they still reliable?
Yeah. And a good thing about Pine, which a lot of them are nowadays, is it's built on AWS, which is an Amazon product. And, those servers are actually US based. So, and they do have offices here and have a faction here in the US, accordingly. But you still got to think about it, just even from the relationship standpoint. Right? What happens? What protocols may you have in place? Are you thinking about have you reached out to some of them? Did you even realize that some of your developers may be coming out of those particular areas? Because there are some of the top developers in the world.
Yeah. And I bet a lot of
people
we
respect their talent.
Yeah. I mean, I bet a lot of people don't realize that. It was always one of those things where, if I were looking, at a new technology, and, I always look at where they're based and, who is running the show. And I got to tell you, there was actually a sense of like, oh, it's Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
You're good, right? You know that.
You're like, oh, yeah, done.
Yeah. But now, I feel horrible.
I do. I really do. Thank goodness I did reach out to Eugene and his team, and they're doing fine. Their families are concerned, but they're able to at least communicate. And he actually told me a couple of days ago, he was like, Tess, we're really hoping in about a week or two, we should be back rolling again. And so that made me feel hopeful from that standpoint, because it's always the news has elements of propaganda in it that make you feel a little bit more fearful. But when you're able to talk to people who are in the thick of things, oftentimes the story is a little different. Right? It's a little different. So I don't ever want to get into politics and things like that, but that just made me feel good that at least him being there, his family is there, him feeling as if there's some hope there.
And hopefully they work it out.
We do. So I'm glad that we were able to talk about that, because I think our listeners and our viewers should think about and know a couple of things about where the developers are for the tech that you're using, maybe some things that might be in place, maybe ask some questions, some what if questions, so that you all can create some risk management plans, or at least have some things in place, an idea around it, because we never know when things are going to happen.
Although I got to tell you, coming up with risk management plans, pandemics, fire, World War III was not on my bingo card.
No, that really wasn't there.
So, all right. Not. So should we take everyone on a journey back into InEvent?
I think we should. It's time. Take it away.
So I'm just going to stop my video in Zoom so you can get the full experience as I sort of enter our live studio here. So I think the first thing to mention here is, as you come into the environment, obviously I'm a host in this environment right now, is that you have the opportunity to pick your cameras. So obviously I'm the same as Pedro. I've got a terrible sort of, laptop camera, and I've got a, my Canon camera. So I can add both cameras, so I can switch whilst I'm in the session as well. You've got the same option with the microphones. Mine is picking it up from my Canon. And what's really interesting in our platform as well is that you can choose virtual backgrounds, which a lot of people actually say that there's not many platforms that has that option. And you can actually upload your own background as well. So if you wanted to, you could create a virtual background with your branding, and you can upload it in the platform and then use that for all your speakers, etc. during the event.
And does it support green screen, or is it, so for example, Zoom does a really good job if someone doesn't have a green screen, but most other platforms, you really do need a green screen. How is yours without the green screen background, or do you recommend that people use one?
So I think we would probably recommend more the virtual backgrounds, because as you know, with a green screen, it's sort of, you need to use it with the software that sort of really flows with that. But it is definitely possible. But as I think again here, do your testing, right?
Yeah.
To make sure that it looks the way that you would like it to do. But there's other options as you come into the live studio, that we've got loads of background options within the sort of framework itself as you do it. So there's loads of customizable options there. And time to show you guys what we're super proud of, our live studio. So obviously I showed you how you connect going into the environment. As you can see now, I'm the host of this session, so I have full control over all the sort of capabilities in the live studio. And as you enter the room, you can see myself and Pedro are currently backstage. So we are sort of blurred out, and as soon as I want to then push a speaker live into the session, I click a little button. You can see Pedro is now appearing, and I can then push myself live as well. So obviously, if you wanted to introduce people during a session, one by one, and then have everyone on screen, and then say Pedro is our keynote speaker today, so we then hand over to him, I push myself off backstage, and then it's Pedro on his own. So, and the same happens obviously for Q&As, which is fantastic, is, if a question comes in from the audience, and it's a question for Pedro, I can make sure that he's on screen. And then obviously later on, if it would be myself, as an example, I can push myself live as well. And what's great here as well, we got a couple of really cool features in terms of communicating via the speakers. So I can whisper, within the environment, so I can speak to Pedro. So I will do that. He will be able to hear me, but no one else in the environment will obviously be able to hear us. We do also have obviously chat functions. So I can actually send a private chat here to Pedro, to say, we start in 5 minutes. And this is obviously not in the public, it's just between us, whoever is, the speakers. So it gives you opportunities to communicate within the platform, and test it out, so to say. So whenever we're ready, I'm going to push both of us live, and I go into our settings, which is obviously where the magic happens, so to say. So depending on the layout of the session, if you wanted to look at, you're sharing some slides as an example, and you wanted those to come up on the main screen, and then you still have the speakers showing, as a movie, you can do that. Or if I wanted to show them in the main screen and the speakers on the right hand side, you can also do a gallery view or hangout, so you can get a real close up of Pedro and myself. You can change this, and as you can see, it's happening automatically. As soon as I change anything, it will change it in the live environment.
Well, and I'll chime in and say, these are awesome features, and they're super, super, super simple to use. Now, I think people will find, there are other platforms out there that might do similar things, but I think what makes yours really good is I love the layouts. I like the movie layout where the speakers are below the slides when you're showing them. But I also think it's really intuitive. I do this for a living, and there are some other platforms out there that just aren't intuitive, where I could walk into this with zero training, and I can make it work.
Yeah. It's all about trialing it, right? And testing it out. And as you said, the fact that, and this goes back to my point earlier, we want to make sure that all events organizers can have control over this production themselves. So we provide that training, but it is super easy to then, test it out, trial it, and see how it works. And as you said, it's intuitive, right? It's not complicated. Like, I worked in vMix, I worked in OBS, and they're not the most user-friendly pieces of software, right? You're gonna have to Google to find out how you're actually doing something, and it takes forever to do it. Whilst here, as you said, you come in and you can just test it out, and you can see exactly what it's gonna do. Yeah,
and and other softwares, the Wirecasts and the OBSs of the world, have their place. They do, but that's when you're going way up the production ladder, right? I mean, you know, those are tools that were designed for the
Mhm.
evening news, you know, or for
Mhm.
things like that. They weren't designed, you know, yeah, they were for live events, but not the type of events that most organizations are running. You know, if you want to produce a news broadcast, since we were actually just talking about the news, you know, yeah, that might be the right thing.
Yeah.
But it's not, you know, sometimes it's like bringing a nuclear bomb to a duck hunt.
Yeah.
And that, you know, it's very interesting. I was actually listening to, there was a news reporter, I think in Arkansas or something, and she was actually like she does the morning news, so it's like from 7 to 8 a.m. And she was actually telling me that, you know, camera crew does not go to the stage anymore, right? So she actually goes to the TV station. She does all the show only herself and the makeup artist. That's it. You know, there is no camera crew behind the cameras anymore. Everything is remote.
Wow.
I thought
Yeah.
that was
Wow.
crazy. I never thought that they could actually have a remote setup for camera crew inside TV station. So I think the
Yeah.
innovation is even for even for
Yeah.
live shows that can be used. You know, like maybe for the Super Bowl, maybe a different thing. But you know, TV stations are outsourcing to a different level, and you know we're actually inspired by TV news shows to copy that because we heard
Yeah.
about like if they can go remote, we can also go remote. You know.
Absolutely. Which
Well,
I think, and I thank you for that. I thank you
Yeah,
definitely for being
very interesting. Yeah.
Well, and I like your labels on the left-hand side, like lower third, right? That's
like
Yeah.
literally say it.
Yeah.
Call it what it is.
And you know, it's a click of a button and then you're done. And as you can see here, you can preset, you know, sort of these as well. So it makes it simple to do it live. Or, you know, it's super simple. It's literally a click of a button and you just change the text, you know, and I push it live. As you can see, that took me 2 seconds to do that.
So Cecilia, what is a Chiron for people who don't know what in the world that is?
So we're talking about the news, right? So you're going to see here that this is what's going to turn it into a bit of a TV show, right? You will now have breaking news coming across the screen, and you know it's sort of that moving element, you know, at the bottom of the screen.
well, and you know, and here's a really, you know, let's say the Wi-Fi for a speaker drops and you have to go back, you know, you flip it back to a moderator and maybe the other speaker, you can put on there, you know, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah.
You know, working on getting John back, you know, again,
Yeah.
you know,
Or you can put your plan B and your plan C right there as it comes on.
Yeah.
You know, go
Absolutely.
ahead and move to the breakout sessions or chat about such and such in the right. It doesn't have to come as an intrusive, like people get so upset. Matter of fact, around push notifications now, you know, you're doing a lot of push notifications and people get so bothered by them. I don't understand why, but anyway, they do. So this is a good way of saying we'll be right back or something similar to,
you know, it's a great way of communicating with your audience without interrupting the speakers. You know, that's sort of the organizer can communicate messages across as well. But also it's, you know, it's also great for obviously accessibility reasons, you know, which obviously we have a lot of tools for as well. But you know, it just, again, you know, it gives that quality production as well. And as you can see here, even with the stream label, you know, if you didn't want the names of the people and their title to show off, I can quickly take that off. And then you can introduce them via lower thirds as an example, if you wanted to instead. So again, and this is where you were talking, it's intuitive. It's a click of a button and it's happening. If I wanted to change the background color to be more on brand, you know, to just be, you know, blue, I change that. If then, you know, a speaker from Coca-Cola is coming on, I can change it. And again, you can obviously add options. And here is where you also have then the branding opportunities. You can add your own pictures, bring those in, and you can change them. So you can have certain pictures, obviously, when there's one speaker on stage, and then you have another one where there's several speakers. And again, you know, you can put videos that makes it very, very futuristic. It feels like I'm moving into space now.
Well, and I think it's one of those things that people should understand can scale with you, right? So, you know, you might be doing, you know, a little small meeting, where, yeah, you're running it in-house, but if you have production and you have a production company for your bigger event, all of their stuff can start plugging in too, right? So you can, and then you can actually have call it a producer that sits behind and is actually running the show, not maybe the host or something like that. This goes from the smallest event that you do all the way up to the biggest.
Yeah. And as you said before, sorry, go on, Pedro.
I was just going to say, that's the new way of delivering sponsorships, because you're going to promote the sponsors on these corners. Instead of a video, you're going to put actually the sponsors as your background image. And people love that, because it's on screens all the time. It's subtle, like it's already available there. And you don't have to be pushing notifications to them or anything. They're already seeing your brand in the background. And that's the perfect way to do it. That's how TV has doing it for like 70 years now. So it works well.
Yeah, well, and no one watches post-roll videos. I was going through a client's sponsorship opportunities the other day, and they're like, you can have a 30-second post-roll video. And I was like, you kind of need to take that out.
No one looks at that.
And also, what we really want to focus on here is the engagement with the audience as well, right? As you said, some of these tools are really to keep the audience engaged and, sort of, if someone is saying something great, what is great in here, we got polls, but I can quickly go in and, add a poll as we're talking. So Pedro might be talking about, the weather, and we can just say, how's the weather where you are? And literally within a couple of seconds, I can, bad or terrible, as we know, and I can just push that live in a second, and it's available to the audience. So, it really provides those opportunities to change things as you go along. Obviously, you can preset a lot of things, which is great, but you can also obviously, do them as you go along. Same goes for questions. For example, if someone is, go to the end of the session, you've got a Q&A, and all of these questions are coming up. People can upvote them. So you add the little heart, and then the ones that's got the most likes will show up at the top. But if this question is for Pedro, I bring Pedro on stage, and I can quickly publish this question within the environment, so Pedro can read it, the audience can read it without having to go into the questions tab, and it sort of again just really creates that engagement and facilities between the speakers and the audience.
Well, and I think pushing the questions out like that is a really good thing, because at home, and when people are watching virtual events, we know that everyone has the attention span of a mouse, right? And so if they were reading an email and something catches their ear and they come back to look, they know what the conversation is, right? They see the question there, which when it comes to audience engagement, allowing
that
people,
is key.
Yeah, allowing people to step in mid-sentence, you have to do it, and that's a great way to do it, especially in the Q&A portion.
Absolutely.
And for accessibility purposes.
Exactly.
You should always think about the person who you don't automatically assume has a disability. It's not about a disability. I just can't see, right? I just can't see because I wear glasses and I'm looking at TV too much. So can I see it written? And I like to see things and hear things all at the same time, and then it gels. So we need to think about everyone when we're crafting and designing these experiences.
Yeah. And talking about the video as well before, obviously, if I wanted to go in and then add a second camera, as we did before, I go to the settings, and then you'll show here on the side, I get a number 1 and a number 2.
Nice.
If I, for example, if I was sitting in a studio and, you even had like a little stage, you had 2 speakers, you could have a wide shot, you can have close-up shots, you can add as many cameras as you want, and you can literally change them between whoever is speaking, so you can feed it via one channel if you wanted to, and just change the cameras.
So I actually, when we were doing our demo, I did not see that, and that's actually really cool.
Yeah, actually, because we got to talking about everything. I think that might have been the one thing that I was like, "Oh, Keith, come see," and then we didn't even get to it.
Well, you got to see it today. You got to
I'm excited. Again, I just from my perspective of seeing an event early stages, right, and seeing you grow and develop through time, I'm just completely appreciative that you took the care to think about what a producer would need, not just what the audience wants to look and see and how they want to see it. Because early on with a lot of startups and talking to event tech companies in their beginning times, my first question was always, okay, as an event producer, I need to have a dashboard I need to come into. I need to be able to manage various different clients. I need to be able to do this, that, and the other. And they were always just so focused on other things, which is fine because they didn't have people on their staff who were planners. Granted, but the fact that you not only talked about it, but you iterated fast on it. Again, I thank you for that.
Nice. One thing, Tess, that I wanted to mention is these 3 cameras. We usually have 3 cameras on our largest shows when we go to them. And at first I thought, when we have 3 cameras and this new feature, let's just put 3 cameras, one here, and one here, right? And then the host is gonna be moving around and moving to talk to the different cameras like we see on TV, like when you go to live TV, usually the host is walking through the stage and then he's talking to different cameras like this. And that's what we did first time. It was terrible. It didn't work so well. And then like, what we are doing wrong, it looks so good on live TV, like we probably not professional hosts or something, right? And then we realized that the best use case to have those cameras was actually to use them as focus, like you're here and you're showing everyone, and then you use a camera to focus on one person and the other person. That's the perfect use case for 3 or 4 cameras. Instead of like walking and moving around, you just use that as a spot points. So.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that because we have a client that we've been streaming and recording their in-person events, and we were using 2 cameras. So you had the wide shot, then you had the close-up, right, that we could move back and forth between who it is. And now we've actually introduced, just as you said, a 3rd camera now. So that, right, so that, but again, they're not talking to the cameras. We're letting them be themselves on stage, whereas we're the ones that are, okay, where are they now? And now for their next event in Boston in July, we're actually going to have a 4th camera, which is actually going to point out toward the audience. So we can switch when at the end, when they go to applause, like now you see the backs of people's head, right? And you kind of hear the applause. Now we'll be able to switch it around, have a microphone that's pointed into the crowd so that people can actually hear the clapping and actually see people's expressions.
One thing I saw on live TV shows that was really interesting. I see that some cameras, they really focus on like 300 people at a given time. So it's really zoomed out, like the camera lenses. And now I saw some shows where you really focus on like 5 or 10 people, very close. And what they do is that they have their reactions clapping and everything. It's not showing everyone, but at the same time, we see their reactions and you feel like, oh, I could be that person, So I interact like they're interacting, so I'm gonna do the same thing, So we are like kind of following what they're doing, like they're kind of actors of reference for what we should do as a viewer, as a spectator.
Well, and I think that's really good. To do something like that would be really good, especially in COVID times, right? Where if you're in a location that has social distancing and things like that, you could actually go to an audience shot and the room looks empty, even though it's not, because they're putting everyone 3 or 6 feet apart, right? So it could be good to zoom in on one person where you hear what's going on in the room, but you see the reaction of the single person. That does give it a little bit better of a feel than, we just finished one event in Chicago a few weeks ago, and the photographer actually couldn't take any wide shots from the back of the room because people were so spaced out. It looked like they were in an empty room.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot. I have one question that for you that I'd like to know. How is it that you all define hybrid experiences for events? Is it truly hybrid if the audiences do not connect at all, or is it not?
So my personal opinion, and I was speaking to Pedro about this yesterday, actually, sorry, I'm just going to get my camera started, is I actually think that there is a misconception. Hold on, sorry, there's something going on here with my camera. There's this misconception of a hybrid event you know, going to having a live event and streaming that content into a platform is not a hybrid event, you know, and I think this is too commonly done now. And what a hybrid event truly is where a live audience is engaging with a virtual audience, you know, and they can really connect and share sort of experiences in a truly, you know, hybrid event. And I think, you know, and I think when we're talking about hybrid as well, I think we need to get people to sort of look at it as, if you want to do just fully a virtual event, that's absolutely fine. And if you want to do a fully live event, that's absolutely fine too. You need to think about what you're trying to achieve. Because for some events, a hybrid event doesn't work.
No,
You know?
that is so true.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said it. Boom, boom, boom. Pedro, do you want to put anything on there since you are the visionary?
For me, it's just the video quality, you know, like you gotta have something that it's original content. You know, I'd really like to see, I just love the video. I'm just a big fan of how, if the video looks good and you have a good entertainment experience, because that's one thing right now. Like if you host an event, and events are really good to convey information in an interactive format. You know, if you do something that's boring, people are not going to stay there, right? So we take the opportunity to get content, or, you know, conferences, and put things on the books or on newspapers, and we create an interactive way of, you know, absorbing that information. That's the way that I see events. So for me, video quality, you know, it's something that helps deliver that thing. You know, I'm also a big fan of, you know, YouTube and any other content platforms because of that. You know, if you have a very good way of delivering the content and looks really good, I think we are like 80% of the way already done there. And that's a challenge because most of the video content right there is not great. You know, it's okay, which we should definitely improve for the upcoming, for the future. That's what we want to do. Yeah.
Well, and that actually will take us into the home stretch, you know, which is, so what types of video technology are you guys most excited about that's coming into 2022 and beyond? You know, what are some of the things that you're seeing that we'll be interacting with in a year?
You can give us your top three.
Yeah.
I always get this question where I tell people is, you know, I don't personally believe in the metaverse and 3D. You know, that's my personal take. I think it's something.
Right. All right.
I don't either.
I think it's a gimmick. I think people are just trying to create something because people are like zoomed out of boring meetings, you know, and they're thinking, let's create another way of experience the same boring content in a different format. You know, people are still not going to stay there. So I just think that technology, it just needs to be a way to connect people with good, realistic, you know, in-person ways, like video, like that. So I'm really a big fan of mobile devices, you know, everything become miniaturized so you can actually travel anywhere and still have a good setup. Like I'm traveling and I have all my 4K gear here, and that's something that was developed recently. You know, I could not do that 6 years ago and have this quality here that I have this camera or audio before. So I'm a big fan of, you know, Apple chips, you know, like the next generation of processors. I think that's a big thing that we should benefit. You know, people should buy the latest computers. That, and also a big fan of 5G. You know, you can connect from anywhere, anyhow. It's very fast speed. So 5G, the development of 5G, I think is going to unlock also very powerful things. You know.
Okay. Cecilia, you want to answer the same question as well?
Well, I agree with Pedro, you know, and I think the thing is, it's, you know, where I'm really excited to see where things will go is, you know, just providing opportunities for people to connect in different ways, you know, providing more accessibility. And, you know, and I think, you know, I know we produce virtual and hybrid software, right? So we know that it's very important to create, you know, virtual experience, but don't get us wrong. We know that in-person experience are equally as important, right? We still need those connections, you know, that's why we go to trade shows. We need to connect with people, but it's that opportunity of, you know, sort of providing and supporting the world and, you know, doing your remote work from anywhere. But, you know, still, you know, still creating connections and experiences, I would say. I would say that in addition to that, I think we need to focus more on data. I think, data is, I heard the other day, it's equally as valuable as water, basically, in terms of commodity. Like, it's super important. And I think we still, to some extent, undervalue data. So I think, I'm excited to see how far we can go with that and where that takes us in development of technologies as well. Like in terms of AI, as an example, I still think that's underutilized in the events industry. I think that we can make better use of AI and the data that we can use to provide better experiences for our audience. So I think I'm excited to see where that's going. That would be my add-ons to that.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the AI that'll know when to switch the cameras.
Yeah. Maybe we'll take that back to our CTO, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up, I'd like, Cecilia, do you have any closing words for the audience? And then Pedro, when you do your closer, I want you to really talk about your vision for InEvent. And that's it.
Well, I think for me, it's, I'm super excited to see, I entered the event technology world about probably, it's about 3 years ago. And I entered it because I'm excited about the future of event technology. It's going to evolve all the time. And I am super proud to be a part of a company like InEvent that are really trying to change how we produce events and putting the power in the organizers' hands. That's the key thing for me, that, I get upset every time a client calls us and says, we've used this software, it's really difficult, my event didn't go well because of these reasons. And for us to be able to provide them an opportunity to really change that is, makes me proud every day. So thank you for having us. We really enjoyed this chat.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice.
And Pedro.
One thing for me, it's the future right now, and that's what we're going to work on for the next 10 years. It's, bringing everything to be mobile, so InEvent, what we are actually seeing is that future of work, the great resignation, people working from home, these are not just temporary states. People are actually going to do that full time now, because you can have a mobile setup anywhere, you can travel anywhere. And people are going to travel more and more and more. And virtual and hybrid events is actually not a extension, it's actually a 100% state. So you're always talking to other people, you're always joining events, you're always broadcasting content. So what I saw already from influencers, growing their social media is actually something that's going to be where we are going to be really aligned with events in the future. We are going to be a 100% social media platform, 100% broadcasting all the time. And we are going to use this content as it's going to be part of not a single event that you go to. Like, I don't think that events are going to be just one thing that you go to anymore. It's going to be part of your daily life. You're going to have micro events in your life every day, through webinars, through social media broadcasts, through a trade show they're just getting, or through a podcast. And that's what I think what the future is, how to get everything to be micro mobile, so you can use this anywhere, anytime on this new economy that we're living in.
Yeah.
Well, Keith, any closing words?
I actually know, because I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have said it better. I think this whole group is kind of aligned, right? So I think that mobile is coming, and Metaverse ain't a thing, and it won't be a thing.
Well, as I close you all out for today, I want to thank our guests for being here. It means, again, a lot to me, because you all are very special in my heart for various different reasons. I also appreciate the vision and the thought that you've taken in for creating and designing the platform. And hopefully, I'm going to do a little plug, Pedro, that you'll put voice as an option for InEvent to look for in the future when you're bringing it down to mobile. Hopefully that'll be on the roadmap somewhere. And we'll allow our guests to pull up with us and hear more about it. Thank you and take care. See you next time.